to the cloud. Well, hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to week 2 of Advanced Programming with Java here at Portland State University. Um, Thank you all for coming back. It's been a week, and boy, that weekend, that record temperatures we had, I have to admit, I'm still kind of feeling the effects of it tonight. So if I'm a little bit flakier, or if I tend to drone on, please. I apologize in advance, and let me know though if things that I'm saying aren't making sense, or if you need me to repeat some stuff. Um, we're all trying the best we can to to survive this latest stuff that's happening in our world. Um, this is we got a lot of good stuff to cover tonight. I made myself like a little piece of paper with all my check marks on it to make sure that I don't forget anything. One of the things that I do at the beginning of class is a section I call Prime Minister's Questions. If you've ever seen like British Parliament, like on C-SPAN or whatever, they have this thing where the British Prime Minister takes questions from the audience, from Parliament. There's usually lots of British accents, and people go because they can't clap. It's please don't do that. Or if you do, stay on mute. It would be very odd if you did. But we'll start off with that, and then we'll explore some more test-driven development, looking again at that student project, and and talking about how we can identify test cases, how we can explore the requirements of the project through test cases, and then implement them using what are called integration tests for the main method that are then backed and reinforced by unit tests on the on the domain code, on the code that makes up the main method. We'll also go through some of the handouts that give you more background for the course. A number of questions have come up during the week about things like, hey, what are the requirements for testing? And hey, what's this dash README thing? And how do I submit my homework anyway? So we'll cover all that stuff tonight. And then we'll also look at Project 2. And along the way, we'll also talk about something called continuous integration, which gives you constant feedback. Or it gives you feedback on the quality of your code every time after you commit. So lots of good stuff tonight. Lots of continuing exploration of contemporary software development using Java. But first, I wanted to open up the floor to you. We had a really good office hours. People brought up some important things. We learned some important things about GitHub. I posted about it on the general channel. Please check it out, because what we learned was that the HTTPS URLs for GitHub may not work for much longer. They are moving away from that style of authentication to other things that are more secure, and so that it might affect how you access GitHub. Please make a note to read that. You don't want to find yourself right before the assignments due, unable to access stuff in GitHub because they've changed things out from underneath you. And apparently these changes have been coming for a while. I wasn't aware of them either. But first, questions from the group. There was someone who was asking one. Oh, fireworks! Just a minute ago. Feel free to come off. Actually, please raise your hand so I can call on you, and then come off mute after I do so. Harsha, yes, your question.
Hi, I have a quick question. So while working with the projects, you said that we have to open form.xml file, right? To uh, to open as a project. We
Yes.
have we have a form.xml in the Portland State Summer to 2021 directory, and then we have another form.xml inside the particular project, like for suppose student. Inside student directory, there is one more form.xml file. So does it matter which one we open in IntelliJ?
Excellent question. I recommend that you open the top level one, the one that is in the root of your checkout, or root of your GitHub repository. So the one that's in the Portland State Java Summer 2021 directory. Because what IntelliJ will do is it'll recognize that that is the parent POM of all of your projects, and so then you'll be able to see all of your source code in one IntelliJ. Otherwise, you'll need to open up one IntelliJ project for your appointment, another one for your cones. It gets a little messy to deal with. So I recommend that you just look at you open up the top level one, and so you'll be able to see all your projects in one IntelliJ project.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, good, great question. What other questions have come up during the week? You've all had a chance to explore the Getting Started repository. Thanks for all of your posts on Slack. Both people who ask questions and also people who answer questions. I know, I appreciate the fact that people will weigh into the conversation during the day. You know, I'm usually able to check Slack first thing in the morning, and then after work, and so then during the day. Maybe I'll see it pop up on my phone or something, but I usually can't get to it because I'm at work. Um, and so then, thanks for all of that. There's a question here that was a DM in chat. Where you posted the new updated GitHub information? Oh, in the general channel in Slack. And let me open that up real quick just so everybody can see it. I have to admit I didn't read it terribly carefully, but here in the general channel, right here. So what seems to be changing is that they are let's see here. Right, beginning August 13th. So right at the end of the course, they won't accept account passwords when authenticating Git. And what they seem to recommend is that you use SSH keys. I use that. For me, I've been using SSH keys for a while, so I sort of understand the workflow. It's a little bit more complex, but it's a good thing to learn. So please, and I'll post this link to. I'll post this link also in the there you go, everyone in meeting. Uh, Read this, um, uh, so that everybody can have it there and be reading it. Important stuff. Okay. Any other questions before we get started? Yeah. Easy ones this week. Okay, excellent. Check that off. Okay, so I want to spend the next little bit of class. It'll probably be an hour or so. And don't worry, we'll take a break. Doing more test-driven development. We sort of scratched the surface last week. We learned a little bit about the JUnit API. We saw some of that, but this week I want to do more of it, and I want to do it together. So um, we'll be looking again at the student assignment, which was here in week one. And so just as a reminder, oops, so sorry, it was here. And I'll post this also in the chat. This is the assignment. We're you're authoring a very simple student class. It's meant to give us something that we can explore, TDD, and something that we can explore using Maven, and all of that good stuff. Uh, and as you may recall, the student class had some required. Every student has some properties. It has their name, the classes that they take, the GPA, and the gender. And actually, I want to take this opportunity to talk about tell you about a learning that I had. So for many years, I've used this example, I think, since the beginning of this course. It just seemed like, oh, a simple thing to get us started. As a matter of fact, at the very beginning, this was the first project that people did. I eventually just turned it into an example because it's pretty similar to Project One. Um, a couple years ago, I kicked it off, and for years, what I had done is I had modeled the gender as a binary choice between male and female. I maybe modeled it with a Boolean. And after class, a student hung around and they asked me if I had a moment to talk, and so and we did. And they told me about the impacts that modeling and representing gender as a binary had on them and the computer sciences in general. And we had a really great conversation. I found it very enlightening, and they provide me with this statement that, in their own words, expressed what it means to not identify with the binary gender and how it impacts them as a software engineer and software. And I through the dialogue that we had both in class and then afterwards, I I realized something that was that I feel is meaningful and something I wanted to share with you. Um, beyond the the issues of identity, which are very important, um, the thing that I realized is that um, treating with someone for which they couldn't use themselves as a test case for the program. And for me, I write software for the benefit of other people. And the fact that the software that I was writing here couldn't be applied to someone didn't seem right and didn't seem effective. I want to make sure that what it is that I'm creating is approachable, is useful. Um, and so then, then with really, and so then, as Tria and I talked about it, I said, okay, well, how can I represent gender in a way that that you can work with, that applies to you? And so then we said, well, what seemed appropriate is another option for gender called other. Simple as that. And they said, okay, yeah, this I can work with that. This now makes sense to me. This applies to me. I feel I can engage with your software. Um, and so this was a very important lesson for me, and I've then thought about issues like this of identity and representation in the software that I built, that I build, and this is something that I wanted to convey to you. Also, it was a real education for me, both in terms of the software I write and this project in particular, because I feel now it's a better project that has better requirements because of it. So something that I'll leave you with, and as you build software for other people in your career at school, think about who your user is, and not just who you expect your user to be, but who people are and how they engage with it. So as a result, then that is why when I model gender, there are there are three values that are accepted by this program: male, female, and other, case insensitive. So last time we created a new project that it gave us this student class, and I'll open up IntelliJ here, and oops, sorry, I got way too many windows. Close the participants. Um, and so then we have the student class here. And we did a little bit of work on it. We have the student's name returned as part of the toString, and we didn't really do anything with the main method yet. And so then we also worked on a class called student test, which provided unit tests for this. Now, unit tests are little pieces of code that test a unit of our program, a small piece, a single method, a single object, and a single behavior in your program. And the idea here is that if you validate all the little pieces along the way, when you get to the end, you put everything together and everything behaves as you expected, because you have the suite of tests that you can run and verify that your program behaves exactly as you expected it to do all along the way. And so then we have some very simple examples here. We also looked at the assignment to come up with sort of the ultimate test for this, which is when you have this Dave object that you get that toString of, because, and I guess I'm sorry I skipped over this, just as a reminder, when you run the main method, ultimately we want a description printed out like this, given this input. So with inputs of Dave, male 3.64, algorithms, operating systems in Java, it should print out the sentence: Dave has a GPA of 3.4 and is taking 3 classes, algorithms, operating systems in Java. He says this class is too much work. So we started in on this last week, and we get to see a little bit of the mechanics of unit testing. But before we do more coding, I wanted to take a step back and engage the entire class in a group activity that helps us better explore the requirements, explore the expectations for this project. So here's what we're going to do. Very shortly, I'll have the class go into breakout rooms, and I'll say, I don't know, groups of 4. And what I'd like each group of 4 to do is brainstorm some test scenarios for the student project based on the description that's there in the assignment. And then we'll get back together. And what I want to do is I want to have, and I'll open up the document to collaboration in a little bit. Sorry, I'll open the document to collaboration after we all come back. So go off in your small groups and please brainstorm basically your expectations for how the program should behave. And there's an input and an expected output. So for instance, when there are certain arguments given to the main method, I expect that this output will occur. And so, for instance, if we look at sort of that happy path case, or if we look at the ultimate case for that, when you have, let's see here, these arguments, oops, let's get the right ones here. When these arguments are passed to the main method, oops, did that paste okay? Yep. I expect that this string is printed, and I'll just copy it from there. So I did the easy one, but this is what I want you to do. I want you to study the assignment, and let's say, hey, I'll give you like 7 minutes. We'll check in. We'll see how things go. Um, Figure out some of the test cases that we should explore, and this will help us understand the understand the assignment better, and will give us an idea of some of the tests that we'll want to implement shortly.
Just to be clear, this is for Project Zero because it says the student
Yes, for student.
project.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Although maybe you're imagining how you could do this for Project One also. It's kind of what we're preparing you for, right? To help you, explore. Again, this is about exploring the requirements, about talking about the expectations that you have for your code. And I could go on and on about that, but I think I won't, as long as it's clear to everybody else what we're doing. So before we break, I wanted to give you an opportunity to ask any questions or um, get any information you need to then be successful with this next.
How many do you expect us to make?
I don't have a good number for that. And so actually what we'll do then, once we get back, we'll go round robin and have each group contribute one until we sort of get to the point where we think we have enough. And so then let's try to get, well, at least one from every group. Let's see here, how many people are there tonight? There are 41, and so that'll be 10 groups of 4, one group of 5. Or sorry, 9 groups of 4, one group of 5. So let's get at least 10. We'll try. We'll see. This is a brainstorm exercise, so I don't know what we're going to come up with, and it might be that as we go around, okay, someone else has gotten the test case that you thought of. No, we'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thanks, Andrew. Any other questions before we break into breakout rooms? Okay, I am going to I will automatically assign everybody to a breakout room. I'll poke my head around. I'll go around, and in about 7-10 minutes, we'll reconvene.
Oh, one last thing.
Yeah.
Should we focus on unit tests or integration tests or both?
We're looking at the command line, so these will be integration tests. But what we're going to do is we're going to specify it with an integration test, and then have that inform the unit test that we need to build.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, good question. Sweet. Okay. Here we go, everybody. I'll be popping around to figure it out. Okay. And away we go. Okay, we're back. Excellent. I hope you all had a chance. I popped into a lot of the conversations. There were some good brainstorming happening. So here's what we're going to do now. I'm well, first we're going to share my screen, and then we're just going to go around the horn and talk about. Is there any breakout rooms anymore? And I'm going to ask each. Oh, you know what? I should have done this. I'm going to ask each team to contribute a test case, and we're just going to keep them up here. And I'd like the test case to be in the form of when I pass these arguments to the main method, then I expect, let's put that here, then I expect that this will happen, right? Some output. And we'll talk about it and we'll capture it here, and then we'll take this table and we'll implement it in what are called integration tests. But we'll talk about that next. So I'd like to invite the representative from Team 1 to contribute a test scenario to our huge table here.
Okay, so one of the ones that we thought of was if you submit, if you entered something that wasn't a number for the GPA.
Okay.
So, for example, if you said, tray other 3-point Z writing, that would probably want to throw some kind of error.
Right. Writing. Okay. And yeah, and specifically, like, what would be a good user experience to have?
You could say, GPA not a valid number, must be between 0 and 4.
Okay, valid number between 0 and 4. And we're going to, say it. So how should we say it?
To the command line, probably, or standard error, I guess.
Standard error. Excellent. Okay. Cool. And I'm kind of being pedantic about this because we're sort of expressing. I want us to be as clear as possible in terms of what our expectations are. Excellent. That's good. Okay. And so yeah, I'll sort of put like a title here, and then this is that. Cool. Excellent. Thank you. Okay. Group number 2. What test scenario would you like to contribute?
Hey, can you hear me?
You can.
I am from group number 2. Our scenario was the one where no arguments are passed into the program,
Yes.
and we expected that there would be like a usage thing that here I have it copy pasted from the thing. It would say something like this, where it would say usage, and then how to run the program with some fake arguments, and then maybe an example that has real arguments, like the one from example 0.
Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna say that the usage message is printed as standard error.
Yep.
Sounds like a reasonable behavior. Nice. Like that one. Cool. Okay. Group number 3. So what test case would you like to contribute?
We have one that is all correct, but with no GPA. So just the 3 arguments of name, gender, and then list of classes.
So missing GPA. So like specifically, what does that look like? What arguments do you want to pass in?
Cody, male, Java.
Okay. Oh, interesting. So Cody, male, Java. And how do we know it's missing the GPA?
Well, you would have some kind of flag that requires at least 4 arguments. But I would say instead of just having GPA printed out, we had like the standard error message, and then within that standard error message, we included the format. So it was like missing command line arguments. Format is name, gender, GPA, list of classes.
Okay, and so then maybe missing GPA and the use message. Good message. That's pretty nice. Okay. Team 4.
Yeah, so we have the name in the alphanumeric format. If we give, for example, Dave 420, then no, it's 420, Dave 420 on a single argument.
Okay, yep.
And the rest of the arguments are similar. Okay. So in that case, it should print the name is not in a valid format.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So then, what are the rules then for valid names? Because it hadn't occurred to me that Dave 420 is an invalid name. So names can only contain letters?
Yes.
Okay.
Letters and hyphen.
Hyphen. Okay. Yep. Yeah. Letters and hyphen.
Would it be safe to say alphanumeric characters? Oh wait, no,
No,
not
not
numeric.
numeric. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So interesting. Okay, cool. It's funny when I, exploring these exercises, I really hadn't thought of restrictions on the name. And so then I don't know. I'm sure there's somebody who probably lives in California who has a name that has numbers in it, and but we'll say that yep, this isn't this doesn't apply to them. Sure, right? Yeah, Elon's right, exactly. And I'm sure he'll be attending PSU one day. So but when he's here, we can have that conversation. Cool enough. Thank you. Team 5, what test case would you like to contribute?
Ours was the first one would be when the GPA is just out of bounds. So Victor, other 4.5.
Victor, other 4.5. Okay.
And then class underwater basket weaving.
There you go. For some reason, they still make you wear the mask during COVID. Okay, out of bounds. Okay.
And then we expect to, put out the standard error of GPA out of bounds, and then range is 0 to 4.
GPA is out of bounds. Range is 0 to 4. Nice. Sprinted to standard error. Excellent. Okay. Test case numbers. Team number 6.
We could try something like day 3.45 will return insufficient arguments. Like if you only provide the name and the GPA, it should print out insufficient arguments. And maybe also specify which arguments are missing. Like for this one, it would be gender and the class list.
Oh, yeah. Insufficient arguments, gender, and class list are missing. Nice. I like that. Team 7.
Yeah, I'll go. So for our team, I think we found most of the ones that are already listed here. There was one test that wasn't mentioned. In the case of ARC2, if we do a string match on male, female, other, and if it's so let's say the arguments are Dave, Mall, 3.64, algorithms, operating systems, Java.
Mall, M-A-L-L?
Yes.
Good, yeah. Nice. Okay, and then what do we expect to happen?
So print a message to standard error. About the error, and then also create the student object still, but default to other.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay, but then okay, so a recognized gender is printed to standard error, and then the rest. And so let's see here. And what exactly is printed out?
So in that case, you actually don't say what the gender is here.
Do I?
Oh, he says. So maybe they say.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Thank you. Team 8.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. Sound good.
Yeah, so our test case was someone entering a full name, a first and last name, but forgetting the quotations around it.
Ooh,
so
okay.
Could be Dave Smith, male 3.5.
Okay. And then what do we expect to be printed out?
Well, the error message should be that since Smith would be taken as the gender, that it would just not be in the bounds of acceptable input for the gender.
Okay, so maybe kind of like the same thing up here.
Yeah, similar.
Okay, so then do these two become the same test case?
Maybe it could be.
Well, no, because then we're going to take the GPA as male and a class is 3.5.
You are correct. Okay, so then they are distinct test cases. Good eye there. Okay, so sorry. Then what do we then expect on here on line 8 for the output?
Error incorrect input for gender.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to say unrecognized gender just to be consistent. Okay. And then nothing else is printed as standard out. Okay, cool. These are good. I like these.
I have a quick question on that
sorry?
one too. A quick question on that one.
Yeah.
Would it like if you have it built where it's gonna like take mul and just go to other, would this one similarly go take Smith and go to other, and would it maybe fail on male being the GPA? Or would I guess this depends how it's made.
Yeah. Unrecognized gender and male is not a valid GPA. R printed. Oops, I don't need to escape this, sorry. It's not like I'm writing code yet. Okay. Nice. Good call. Team 9.
So that's a good lead into ours. So ours is arguments supplied in incorrect order. For example, 3.5, Java, he, Dave.
And he or male? Sorry.
Or male, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. And then, what would you expect in this situation?
So a bunch of errors. I'm not sure how to, because 3.5 would parse incorrectly for the name. It would be hard to distinguish if Java was a name or a class.
Right.
I think male is in the correct place, or maybe not in that. Yeah, so maybe just the usage based off of the first incorrect detection to standard error.
Lots of problems. Cool. Yeah, we'll maybe get to the specifics of that one exactly later. Nice. Get a little itchy to code here, and this is good stuff. And Team 10.
Yeah, the beauty of being 10th is that all of them are already taken, but we had to think of one on the fly. So I suppose I see it here on the usage that a student can take 0 or more classes.
Yes.
But maybe we should have a test case for if they enter in 0 classes. So something like Dave Mail 3.64. We don't necessarily have to exit the program with standard error, but we could maybe print out to the user, are you sure you're not taking any classes? Do you want to add any classes and allow that?
Well, the instructions say it's valid.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Let's assume the user did the right thing.
Print out exactly what it should say without any classes, which maybe I can find that.
Let's figure it out. So yeah, okay.
Just a moment while I look it up.
Okay.
Dave has a GPA of 3.64 and is taking 0 classes.
Okay.
Is that what it's supposed to be? I don't.
That sounds good.
We have it.
Nice. He says class 2. Excellent. Okay. Great. These are great test cases. I think this is good for to get started. But before we start looking at code, are there any other test scenarios that someone really wants to contribute? It's like, oh my gosh, we're totally missing a whole category of things, or do we think we have to? Do you think we've got a good place to start? Let's see here. In chat, Sam says maybe dash help. Okay.
So,
oh, sorry.
hi.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah. So there was an argument, what if the person hasn't taken any classes for the term? So,
yeah. I think we define that here for 0 classes, right? It says in the assignment that it's okay for the student to be taking 0 classes.
Yeah.
So now I think about it. Yeah.
Okay, and we got to mention something like none to check if there's no classes. probably if they're not taking any classes, we can mention none there.
Oh yeah, I think we say is, oops, it's taking 0 classes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yep.
I think what Puja means is basically when we, group 9, came up with this test case, we thought surely students should be able to exist in the system without taking a class in a term. So is there a test case that allows them to take no classes while not causing an error? And that would, in our scenario, be if you type in string none.
Oh. I suppose it'd be silly to have a class called none, but it's a call, right? It's a decision. So,
I mean,
And
taking
how would we
0 classes.
define success and allowing that entry, you know?
well, and in this case, I think what we're saying is that we just don't have an argument for it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
right.
the way that was a problem for us was that basically that like clipped into the test case of too few arguments in our discussion.
Oh,
But if
okay.
that's allowed, then that's allowed, you know?
Can I add one thing?
Yes, please.
If we had an argument of none as the class, then it would probably, since the array list would be, there would be one item in the array list, it would say this, that student's taking one class, none. And that might be kind of iffy.
Or you need to have logic to say, oh, wait, it's none, and then don't put it in the array list. These are exactly the kind of conversations that I wanted this exercise to elicit, right? I don't have right or wrong answers. We are determining ourselves how we want this program to behave. There's a lot of stuff that's specified in the assignment, and there's some stuff that we're discovering. Okay, there isn't, there isn't a clear right or wrong, yes or no, and so then let's decide amongst ourselves.
One last one that occurred to me is we also had one for just simply too few arguments, and that involves basically checking the length of the args parameter, and basically saying if it's less than 4 or maybe less than 3 actually, you're allowed no classes, then simply give an error for that.
Okay, and there are probably a couple of variations here. Well, and so then maybe, right, because like you've got Dave Mail and you've just got Dave, and so then maybe another way to express that is to say missing GPA, which, do we already have that? Yeah, I guess we got that.
Yeah, we have
one.
that.
Yep, and so now it's just missing, wait, so that's missing gender. Let me just make a note of that.
I was just thinking that basically we usually want a student to have their name, their gender, and their GPA at least, right? So we could make a very simple, straightforward test case by just saying, is the number of arguments enough?
Yes, that's how you would implement it. And actually this is something that I've had to really I've wrestled with, and it's completely natural to do so, because it's like you're talking about this stuff, and I don't know about you, but my first instinct is like, oh, great, what does it mean? How do I implement it? And when I'm focusing on writing test cases, I have to like take a step back and say, aha, not quite yet. So I like the way you're thinking. And so then what I try to do when I'm in this situation is then turn that thinking into test cases, really, literally what it means. Because yeah, the first, it makes sense to like have the first thing, or actually maybe it makes sense. We'll see as we start implementing. But yeah, having there be a check to say, hey, do you have enough arguments? If not, spit out not enough arguments.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd want to, but with the test cases then, while they might be inspired by the implementation, I'd recommend that you go the other way. Come up with the scenarios first and then see how that influences your implementation. Otherwise, you might discover there's a test case that your implementation doesn't support, and then you have to like rewrite a bunch of code. But we'll play with it.
What if you had non-alphanumeric characters in one of your arguments?
I think, if we had that for Dave. Non-alphanumeric. Okay, well, and actually, let's get specific. What are the inputs in that case?
Like if you had special characters, like quotes is a big one that trips me up. Too many periods, or
so let's get specific. Like, what are the inputs and what are the expected outputs?
Okay, so let's say you had a name put in quotes.
Okay.
And
okay.
instead of an A for Dave, you used an ampersand.
Oh, took that out. Okay. Okay, and then but otherwise the input's good.
And then maybe you accidentally put in a special character for the number of classes.
Well, we don't put in the number of classes; we put in the actual classes. But
Oh
then,
yeah.
no, and right here again, this is what we're exploring here. Okay, so then like input like this.
Yeah.
Okay, what would we expect here to have happen?
Well, it would probably work, but if you were to parse it again, it might cause problems, particularly with those quotes. So if you were
Well,
to
we're not parsing it again, luckily, but I like
yeah,
where we're going with this, right? You know, if you've got no matter, you know, if you allow certain inputs, you got to make sure that everything in your program can allow that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it seems like the program would allow this. It would just it's just the output would look like nonsense. So it would say,
Oh, I see.
Dave,
Yeah.
the mistype of Dave has a GPA of 3.64 and is taking one class F function.
Well, you know, and this is an interesting point. This is doing exactly what the user told us to do.
Right.
Although we did say up here in this other test case, like the Dave 420 test case, said that names can only contain letters and hyphens. So maybe maybe it catches it there, or maybe that's not the right requirement after all. But yeah, this is exactly what the user asked to do, and should we allow it or not? These are the kinds of discussions that you either have with yourself or as with your team as you are exploring the the various inputs that you can send to your program and what they mean. Super cool. I saw a couple of texts or a couple of chats come in. Let's see here. Someone said, not sure if this is applicable, but would we need to guard against buffer overflows, injection attacks, or anything like that in Java? For this program where you're sending things on the command line, gosh, I suppose, yeah, you could try it with like 10,000 program arguments and see what happens. Java probably protects against that. But I like where you're going, right? So this is a very simple program, so probably not. But boy, I really don't talk too much about it in this course. But as you're developing software, especially software that's available on the public internet, you have to think about vulnerabilities in it. You need to think about various vectors of attack. And so I won't go into it tonight. Maybe there'll be some time later in the course, but we can talk about some of the common vulnerabilities, common attack vectors of in software, especially software hosted on the internet, and what you can do to prevent them. So that's a great point. Someone else said maybe -- help. If you don't mind, the person who asked that, if you don't mind coming off mute and explain a little bit more, let's see if we can fit it into a row here and figure out what kind of behavior we expect.
Oh, sorry. I probably just the usage statement again, like from before.
Okay, and then okay, the usage message is printed to standard error. Okay. Cool. Some other ones here. And then how that affects the GPA. If you entered a 3.5 GPA and none or 0. Okay, I think it was probably in the context of another discussion we were having. Out of
I know
bounds.
it's.
Yeah, sorry.
Maybe it's
Go ahead.
nitpicky, but I think usually when you do -- help, it's printed to standard out, not standard error.
Thank you.
I just was
we're
looking it
striving
up 'cause I
for
was curious.
Nice.
But when you do it with no arguments, it gets printed to standard error. Usually, it doesn't really matter.
Well, you know what? I don't know if it matters, but we want to be specific. So let's, or I want to be deliberate about it. And so then, yeah, we'll say standard out. Awesome. Let's see here. This one be standard, never gets realized, but out of bounds exception should be implemented as well for the value stored in the float. It could be between 0 and 4 and have enough decimal points to be out of bounds. It's very niche. Yes, thinking about overflow or underflow or things like that. Probably a little bit beyond the scope of the simple little project, but if there's a test case that we can write, we can certainly explore it. I don't know exactly what that test case looked like off the top of my head, and I want to get coding, so. And then yes, emojis, always emojis. Oh, question: does the string class in Java allow Unicode characters? You betcha. And so we can figure out maybe how best to test that one. Although that might be a little bit beyond what we're doing, but I'll just make a note here for Unicode or emojis.
I have one last possible one.
Yeah.
I don't know what the limit at PSU is, but too many classes. Because I think we can only take, what is it, 5? Is it 4 or something? But anyways.
That's a good point. So then let's see here. Otherwise, I don't know. What do we want to say? I don't have a good idea. 6? Okay.
Yeah, 6.
Okay, too many. So more than 6. More than 6. Okay, algorithms, operating systems, Java, networking, cloud, nightmare. Yeah, right. Cloud and yoga. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Too many classes. It's printed a standard error. Excellent.
I have one more thing to say. It's not a test case, but it's a general idea, and it's not my idea. It's one of my group members. So instead of supplying the arguments in the command line, like you give like Java and then the jar file, and then you start giving the arguments, right? So what if you convert this into a interactive session, like Java and then the jar file, and then the program asks you like, what's his name, what's his GPA, like a UI kind of thing. Yeah.
That's an important usability call. And so I'm glad you brought it up. It's something that I might have been a note about. I hope it was a note about it in Project 1 for this course. That I do not want projects to read from standard input. I know that's what we usually learn in our first CS classes. It's kind of neat, and there are certainly lots of command line tools out there that will read from standard input. I don't want that. Please don't do that because it messes up my grading script. My grading script just assumes like you give it the inputs, it reads the inputs and does whatever it does with it and exits. No interactivity there. So then I think for the purposes of what we're doing tonight, let's not. I'm not inclined to entertain entering arguments through standard input. But in the real world, as you're designing a command line application, that might be exactly the right thing to do for the user, because it does provide that very interactive back and forth.
Yeah, what you did for the survey program, kind of.
Yeah, right. I guess I'm just sort of like I'm following my own advice, but yes, yep. The survey program does use standard in.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, and let's see. Oh, another question. When we write the Android app, are we going to write a GUI code? Yes. Yeah, command line Android app. That would be lame. But yes, it's and here again. Let's wait a couple more weeks. But then we'll start. We'll definitely get an introduction to writing user interfaces on a small device using Android. Good deal.
During our discussion, we had one more thing.
Yeah.
Like if the name of the subject repeats, like if he gives Dave mail 3 point something and algorithms.
Yeah. Great. So can't take the same class. Can't take the same class twice. Nice. That's a good one. I never thought of that one. So algorithms. Gosh, why would anybody want to take algorithms twice? Okay, can't take the class algorithms twice. Nice. Is printed. I did the escape for the quotes again. Standard error. Okay. These are great. I appreciate all the creativity. I do want to move on though. but I have a feeling we need a break because we've been going for like an hour and 15 minutes. So let's take a break. We'll come back at the top of the hour at 7 o'clock. So 12-minute break. And then we'll start implementing these. So I'm going to pause the recording and we'll come back then. Okay, and we are back. I'm going to close that. So far in class, after the Prime Minister's questions, we've been exploring more about the student project. And so we have been engaged in a group activity where we brainstormed a bunch of test cases, and we came up with some great ones. And so then now what we're going to do, and by we, I mean me, is implement some of these. And through this exercise, I hope that you'll get a better idea of test-driven development, how to write unit tests, but also write something called integration tests, which I'll talk about shortly. Because you're going to need to be doing this for your projects, for your assignments. And so then, I'm giving you some experience here with a student project that you might want to apply. I recommend you do apply to your appointment book project and project 1. So, let's just dive into it. So I was looking over the list of test scenarios here, and I'm thinking about which ones I want to implement in which order. And because these are and I'm going to start with writing something called integration tests. Let me talk about what that is. So unit tests are, like I was saying, this is where you test like a single unit of the program, a single class, a single method, very simple functionality. But as programs go, as the programs grow, they get more complex, right? You have multiple classes interacting with each other, and then at the periphery of your system, you have the user interface, and then you have interactions with other systems. And you want to be able to validate that not only all the right stuff happens inside your program, but you want to be able to validate the right amount of stuff that happens at the periphery. Now, for these command line programs, I consider the periphery to be the command line, the main method, the input that comes in from the command line from the user, and then the output that is written to standard error or standard out. And so then for me, an integration test for a command line program is doing exactly that. You provide some command line arguments, and then something happens with standard error or standard out, and there's also an exit code. For other kinds of programs with different user interaction or different action on the periphery, you'll have other behaviors. In Project 4, which is the REST API, you'll see that there are integration tests that actually exercise your HTTP-based REST API with an actual client. It's way more complex. We'll get to it in a couple of weeks, only a couple of weeks. And we'll see it then. But for project 1, 2, and 3, you will be writing what are called integration tests that exercise your command line program in such a way that you can pass arguments to your main method and then validate that the expected text is written to standard out and standard error, and also that the expected exit code is called for system.exit. And we're going to start doing that now. So I'm going to choose my first integration test to write the first test of my command line program. And that is, I'm going to take the most simple one. It's number 2 here, right? No arguments are passed to the program. So when no arguments are passed to the program, the usage message is printed to standard error. So I'm going to come over here to IntelliJ. And now I wrote my unit tests and something called student tests. And actually, if we go and look, we'll see that there's a source code in the student project in source test Java. There is a Java package with student test in it. If you look over in the IT directory hierarchy, which stands for integration test, there's a source IT Java, that same package, and then a class called student IT. Now, student IT uses, it extends a class that I wrote. I have this little framework called invoke main test case. And what invoke main test case does is it gives you some methods that you can import and some classes that you can import that allow you to invoke your main method via a JUnit test, and then does some magic to do things like capture what's written to standard output, capture what's written to standard error, capture which exit code is called with, and then validate it. this provides you, some easy access to things, and also the magic allows you to do something like call system.exit from a unit test without the VM actually exiting. And so then that's sort of the neat thing about this invoke main test case. Don't worry about how it's done. We'll see lots of don't worry about the implementation. We'll see how to use it here through another thing, a bunch of different test cases. Although now that I look at the test cases, I think these are the ones that do number 2, right, which I have a test case number 2. So no arguments are passed into the program, and a usage message is printed to standard error. So here I've got invoking main with no arguments has exit code of 1, which is something that I wanted to validate, and actually and exits, and the program exits with oops. What's number 2 here? And the program exits with code 1. And so here's how I've implemented that test case. There is a method called invoke main. Invoke main is inherited from invoke main test case. And what you give main is something called a class object. A class object is an object that represents a class, in this case, student class. And so the syntax that you use, you say student, the name of the class, dot class. And this is all covered in the reflection lecture, which is in a couple of weeks. So for right now, just believe in the magic. Invoke main has the name of the class whose main method you want to invoke. And then it also has an optional number of arguments that gets passed to the main method. So you'll recall that the student class has a method called main that takes a string of arguments. And right now, all it does is it prints to standard error missing command line arguments. And we then validate that functionality in the, I'm sorry, I need to clean some things up here, and I've got a million Zoom windows and stuff here. I'm going to close all the tabs to the right. I'm going to get rid of these pom.xml so we can really focus here on what's going on. So here we have this test that calls invoke main. Invoke main returns instance of a class called main method result. And main method result, if we look at it, has I wish I had API doc instead. It has, I'm not happy with this. Never mind. Ignore that, please. It has methods that allow you to get, I'll say this. Nope, I'll say this. It has methods that allow you to get the text that was written to standard error, text that was written to standard output, and things like the exit code. And then you can use the assertion methods to validate all of this. So what this test does is it goes and it calls the main method of student with 0 arguments and captures all that information, what was written to standard output, what was written to standard error, what the exit code was, embodies all of that, captures all of that inside this main method result object, and now we assert that the exit code, which returns capital I integer, is equal to 1. Okay, now when we run that, it'll compile everything, and then it'll run that integration test using the invoke main test case codes. Oh, and it blew up very mightily. What doesn't it like? Oh, wow. That is unfortunate and messed up. Could not load class with name. Student class not found. Oh, what's going on there? Something wrong with JUnit. Shouldn't be using JUnit vintage. Why is it doing that? Oh, bother. Is it using... Nope. How do I configure that? Oh, crud. Method selector, this. Could not load class with that. Can I configure anything here? Run on EA. So this is a JUnit 5 test case, and it looks like it assumes it is a JUnit 4. I don't know why. Run on local machine. Modify options. doesn't have anything about JUnit. Ah, crud. Okay, might have to do this the hard way then, which will kind of suck. Hmm.
Hey, David.
Yeah.
So, are you writing the code in student IT, or should it be the unit test is done on the test folder?
No, well, the unit tests, yes, these are integration tests, and they're run a little differently.
Okay.
I'm not too sure why that's happening though. But I think then what happens if I do move it over here? Some things will break. I'm not happy with that. Yeah, maybe this will be good enough for tonight. Now if I run it, oh good, Harsha says that it works okay on their machine. So what's wrong with mine? Okay, so now it's fine if I run it as a unit test. So for whatever reason, this doesn't think. Oh, nope. If I move it back over there and I run it again, is it happy? Okay, now it is. I don't know what just went wrong, but it looks like I fixed it. Okay, ignore that. So if you just watched in the last minute and a half, okay, I am much relieved. Yes, magic. I don't know. Okay, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. I guess here we have two test cases that validate one, that the exit code when you invoke student with 0 arguments is equal to 1, and then this one invokes that when you have no arguments, it prints a missing arguments message to standard error. According to this, we should print the usage message. Do I want to implement that right now? Yeah, I guess I could. That probably would be a good idea. Okay, and so then I will say that it would also contain the usage message, which I am going to put as a big old constant in the student class. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to take some shortcuts here, which I'm going to do in general tonight because I want to get through things kind of quickly. And so if I was doing this for real, and like when you do this for your project, you want to have a nicer usage message, so it's understandable. But I won't. And actually, do I have this in the assignment someplace? Maybe I can cheat and just copy it from there. I do not. Okay, a Java student, and then name. Sorry, wait a second. What's the command line? Name, gender, GPA courses. Name, gender, GPA courses, classes. We'll just say that. Now, if I go back to my integration test and I run this again, I'd expect it to fail. It does, because it expected a string with the usage. Now it's just saying missing command line arguments. So now I'll go and make it green. This is that red-green refactor, right, Uncle Bob, and his silly hat and everything. And now, in addition to missing command line arguments, I also want to print that usage statement. Now, the reason that I put that text in this constant right here is so that I can easily reference it from my integration test. And as a matter of fact, I could probably put this constant in the actually that'd be a good refactoring, right? Because I have duplicate code. So let's make sure that it's green. That's green. It is. Now let's refactor it. So let's put this into a. Actually, I'll do it in student. I guess it'll be a little easier. I will create a constant. Sorry, I refactor. Let me. Sorry, analyze. Nope. Code refactor. Sorry, I don't know the menus. I don't even see refactor on here. Feels so ridiculous. Well, where's the refactor menu? Move line. Is it not under code?
Right side of
It's on the right.
analyze.
Yeah.
Sorry, what?
The right side of analyze.
Under code. Code.
No, this is the left side. The right side of analyze.
Thank you. Sorry. Sheeshed. Extract, introduce constant. So it's on my machine, it's Option Command C. And we'll just call it missing command line arguments, put that into a constant. And then we'll just replace this with student dot missing command line arguments. And we'll run it again. I'm going to start using quick keyboard shortcuts so I can go fast. It's running it again. And it passes. Cool. Okay. So I added it, and so now I met that test case. I'm going to then highlight this one as. Oh, do I need to make it big to see the highlight? I do. I'm going to call it green. I like making things green. Yay! It passes. Okay. Cool. And I'm gonna go ahead and commit my changes. I'm just a big fan of committing early and often. So I'm gonna go here and I'm going to say commit files, and I'm going to say added a uses message when no command line arguments are provided. And I'm going to, I'm going to commit and push this up to GitHub. Sweet. Okay. Oops. I want to make this window a little smaller. Nice. Okay, now let's do something a little bit more interesting. Let's write a new test case instead of doing other ones. I am, let's see here. I think I'm going to do the most degenerative one, which actually we don't. Oh yeah, missing gender and GPA. Let's do this one next. So what happens when I just give it one argument as Dave? So I don't need to make the public anymore. Void missing. I'm just gonna say missing gender. So I'm gonna say invoke main with the student.class. And the only argument is going to be Dave. And then when I do that, I'm going to refactor this into a variable. I'm going to say introduce variable, and I'm going to call this result. And then I'm going to assert that result dot get text written to standard error is going to contain the string missing gender. And while I'm at it, I'm going to have multiple asserts, which I don't know. Some people are kind of purist about the number of asserts. Oh, there should only be one assert in a test method. I don't know. I don't mind having multiple of them equal to one. Okay. So now I'm going to run this. Again, I expect it to fail. Yep, expected missing container, but missing gender, but instead printed missing command line arguments. And the usage, well, that's not exactly right, is it? And so then now let's go back to our student, and what do we need to do here? So let's see here. We need to, I'm going to put this side by side. Oh, I see someone posted something. Someone's got an idea. Check if gender was an argument. Yes. And so then split and move right. So I've got this. The test is over here on the left. I want to make it pass over there. So I've got to say, Well, let's make this easy. If args.length equals 0, then I want to print this stuff for missing arguments. Else, if args.length equals 1, I want to say system.err.println, what did I say? Missing gender. And heck, let's just make that a constant. Let's do that now. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Whatever. And then I'll introduce a constant for this, missing gender. And then I believe this will make it pass. And while I'm at it, well, I'll run this and then refactor it. So I'm going to run it again. Cool. Okay, that seems to work. And because I called system.exit1 down there, it they both pass. Okay, that's nice. I'm not going to commit that yet. Let's go on to another test case. So then this one is passing. Just check that off the list. Oops, which green did I use? I can never remember. Maybe light green. I don't know. What is next? Probably another one, the missing one. So, oh wait, I did that wrong. That should be missing GPA, didn't I? Oh no, wait. Oh, that one, huh?
No, I think that's right. Gender is the second argument.
Right, and in test case number 6 right here, there is a second argument. So it's not that gender is missing, gender is like invalid. Unless we wanted to, You know what, some of these are interesting, and now that I get implementing them, it kind of makes me wonder then if we, if we interpret this as the name, and then when we interpret the second parameter, like why do we know? How do we know, or how should we distinguish? Sorry, let me say this again. When we get this input, should we report that this is an unrecognized gender, or should we report that it's where the gender is missing? So like, should we always assume that the second argument should always be interpreted as the gender, or should we be smart and say, oh, look, the second argument is a number, but numbers aren't allowed as a second argument? I don't know. Number must be a GPA. Some of these answers in IM are interesting, right? Someone says, oh, no, it should be a unrecognized gender, right? And then someone's like, well, how much work do you want to do for the user? And yeah, I'm inclined, because I'm lazy, I guess, to just always assume that the second argument, whatever it is going to be the gender. So then this really becomes an unrecognized. Well, and so then, so sort of like gender that looks like a GPA, and this should be like unrecognized gender. So let's see here, some of the commentary. If you specify a usage order, you should process how the input is delivered, barring some type of parse issue. I tend to agree. I think that's simplest to implement and also simplest to explain to the user. And so like, let's not try to be smart or tricky. It just makes things more complicated. And so this one then should be unrecognized gender. And then let's just, it helps to give the, oops, I did the back. This code scanning, just had an error. Okay, so now let's implement that. And, oh, another good point. If order wasn't important, or if we were trying to be tricky, we would have to put all that information in the usage, and you don't want to have a novel for your usage. So let's keep it simple, and go from there. Okay. So the next one is Public void. Oops, sorry. Old habits died hard. They used to have to be public. They don't anymore. Unrecognized gender. And so then we'll invoke main of the student class with the arguments Dave and then 3.145. And we will say that that is, we're going to say the following. I'm just going to like copy some stuff. And we wanted to say that, oops, we wanted to say, I wish my screen was just a little bigger. I don't want to make the font any smaller because it'll be harder for everybody to read. So that we want the standard error to say unrecognized, misspelled gender. Okay, yeah. Unrecognized gender. 3.45. And then we want to exit with a code of 1. I think that's the right test case there. And so then, oofed. Okay, it fails because it was looking for this string and it was empty, and that's true when the lengths are, yep, when the length is 2, it doesn't print anything. So okay, so let's try to get this one to pass now. So else if args dot length equals 2. Well, that's not exactly right, but let's just keep it simple now. So then our string gender equals args. Oops. What doesn't it like? Oops. Args are 0, 1. And okay, now we need to figure out how and where to implement the validation of gender. Or we could cheat. Because we could just make it pass, and we should do that. Let's shoot. I want to wait another 2 minutes before I have to make a decision about gender. So let's always say that whatever gender is passed in is wrong. It'll make the test pass. I know it's not the final thing, but I don't know exactly how I have to do it. I don't want to make the decision just yet. So to make the test pass, we will say unrecognized gender, and then whatever the gender is, and then another one of those things, and I think it'll work now. Yeah, it does. Okay. But now, what's going to be my next test case? Well, now we have to have the supported genders. And then other is a recognized gender. We didn't have this one as a test case, but I think it follows. So here we want to have let's see here. What is the input that we want? We want to say other is valid, and then we well, in this case, it should complain about something else, shouldn't it? So it's a valid gender, but now it's missing a GPA. But GPA is missing. That doesn't really validate what I want. But this isn't the only way I have to test my program logic. So, one of the things, what I'm doing here is I'm starting with the integration test because we brainstormed all those ideas about the command line and what's valid and what's invalid there. But, at some point, I'm I'll want to implement my logic in student, and I don't have to always have an integration test for it. Actually, you want way more unit tests than integration tests because there's just fewer things to do, fewer things to work with. So if we look at student, we can look at the constructor, and maybe it makes sense then to have a unit test for use unit tests to develop the logic around recognizing the accepted about the recognized genders, and then have the integration test focus on other things. No, or not. I don't know if I'm really quite there yet. So let's see here. Others recognize gender, but GPA is missing. And so then here we just wanted to say missing GPA. Missing GPA. Okay, it's complaining about an unrecognized gender because it doesn't recognize it. So let's go through and implement that. Oh, let's see here. Let's say if we can write a function. If not is recognized gender, then we'll print that. Otherwise we won't. And so then we can say create that method. And then again, just because we want to do as little work as possible, we'll say that we recognize it if it equals other. We'll run our integration test again. Oops, it still says unrecognized gender other. I wonder why that is. Oh, sorry, because I had a logic error. It is recognized. This is why you write unit tests, right? Some dumb little mistake like that, I caught it within seconds of me making it because I had a unit test for it. Dave from 25 years ago would have written the entire thing, and there would have been this dumb little logic logic there, and I wouldn't have caught it until minutes or even hours after I wrote it. This is why I like using. This is why I like unit tests. It catches the dumb little mistakes that I make there, because lots of thoughts are going through my head, and I make dumb little mistakes. Okay, now it's failing because expected missing GPA and it was nothing. That's true because I haven't done it yet. Yes.
Did it recognize it just from the IDE without even compiling or anything?
Nope, I ran the unit test and that's how it knew.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Or rather, I ran the integration test and it failed in a way I didn't expect. So it said, "Oh, here, let me just undo it here, so we can go back." So the code used to look like this, and I said, "Oh, if it's a recognized gender, then print out the error," which is incorrect. I didn't notice it until I saw it still complaining about unrecognized gender. I'm like, well, why is that? Oh yeah, duh. You look at the code closely and you realize that you've got, a simple logic mistake right there.
Okay.
And next week we'll talk about pair programming, and this is the kind of thing that I would hope that in pair programming, the person sitting next to you would say, wait a second, you forgot the bang.
Is IntelliJ, once we load in the pom.xml, automatically set up to run the tests directly from it?
It should be.
Okay.
And it looks like there's ample evidence that it does, but I hope it does for you, because sometimes it's a little hard to get everything working again when it doesn't. But yeah,
when I was working on Project Zero, I had to recompile every time. I was like, this is taking a long time.
Oh yeah, nope. IntelliJ, when it's firing on cylinders, on all cylinders, and when it understands everything about your project, it works and works well.
Okay, I'll look into that. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So let's see here. Now it's complaining that that it should have a string missing GPA, which is true. Else if args.length Oh, interesting. Okay. So that's not the right way to implement it. We still only have 2 arguments, right? Yeah. So if it's only got 2 arguments, I'm not so happy with how this code is here. So now we print system.error.println missing GPA, and we'll put that in a constant, and we will use it over here. Student.missing GPA. Now if I run it, it passes. Okay. Okay. It's been a little while since I've committed. I'm going to commit my changes. And I'll say parsing gender. Yeah, from the command line. But actually, it's recognize the other gender. The other recognize other gender from the command line. Okay, well this is getting interesting. Some things about this code that I'm not super liking, but what I want to do is I want to explore that through test cases. So let's see here. What can I do?
Can we check if the gender is valid first?
Right. So yeah. I mean, so like, should we, should we go should we do the other genders? I think we should. So we'll do female gender. Female is a recognized gender, but GPA is missing. That whole but GPA is missing. There's something about this I just don't like. I can't quite put my finger on it. My instincts tell me that it's going to like come back to bite me shortly. But the nice thing is that I have all these tests to protect me. The tests themselves are all valid. So basically over on the left, I'm feeling good about the tests. Over on the right, I'm not feeling so good about the implementation, but that's okay. What? Wait, that worked? Why did that work? Oh, interesting. So this worked because, well, I mean, let's look at the code. Sorry, who knows why this worked?
Yeah, because we don't have any else statement there, and that missing GPA prints always.
Excellent. Yes. And so then this, yeah, very nice. So isn't this interesting, right? This is why you always do red, green, refactor. This is why you always write a test that you expect to fail, because it didn't. It's like, wait, why did that work? One of my assumptions was incorrect, and it was. So this is good. So now we've got that. So I'm not. Yeah. So isn't it interesting then that? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Now it does. Okay. So now it's failing the way we expect, and now we just got to implement this, or gender equals female. And then we run it again. And then let's also assert male. Male is one. There we go. Now, if we run this one again, I expect that it should fail. Okay. Let's make it pass. And I'm itching for some refactoring. I think these tests can be refactored. I'm doing a lot of cut and paste code here. Let's see if we can do a better job after we get this thing passing. And you know what I haven't done? I've been, I haven't run all of my tests in a while. So let me run all of the tests. Let me run the entire test suite by running the entire package here. Make sure everything still passes. Oh, good, it does. Okay, now I will refactor. I don't, boy, there is so much duplicated code here. Let's see here. That's unrecognized gender, but like all these things here, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put this into a variable called, let me refactor, extract introduce variable. I'm just going to call it gender. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this whole thing into a method. I'm going to refactor this into, I'm going to extract a method, and I'm going to call it assert recognized gender, but GPA is missing. And good old, well, let's see here, actually, what is it telling me? Oh, it's trying to tell me that, oh, don't you want a different signature? And the answer is no, I want to keep the original signature. And it's saying, do I want to replace this occurrence? Yes. Oh, and it's telling me, look, it's finding the duplicate code. That's nice. Yes, I want to replace it there also. And oh, isn't that easier to read? Because they all do the same things. And because I have all these unit tests, I can make sure that my refactoring didn't change any behavior simply by rerunning all of my tests. Oh, good, it does. Okay, so I'm at a happy point. I'm going to quick check in my code because, damn it, my tests are passing. If I screw anything up, if I break anything, it'll be easier for me to revert if I have everything in version control. So I will say support female and male genders.
What would you say is like a good cadence for committing, and then also good cadence for pushing?
Me, because well, because here in class, it's pretty easy to do. As you can see, I'm doing it pretty often, mainly like for backing up purposes. We will after we do a little bit more here, I'm going to talk about continuous integration, and how actually in the background I have the tests running for me, and so then I like to keep that busy. So yeah, I commit pretty often. At work in the real world, maybe not as often. There are some people that will see like a trail of like small GitHub changes, and they'll get all the vapors because like, oh my gosh, there's so much here and everything, and you should squash all those changes. That's cool. That's cool. I choose not to do that, but or rather, I prefer not to do that. But I understand the value of it, so then I'll do it for other people, not for my own benefit. But anyway, so I like to commit often. Okay, so now I've got all of this. Okay, so I was saying there are some things I don't like about my code. I'm wondering if I can. No, I can't quite test what I want to test yet. Okay, so then let's move on then. Okay, so sorry, we sort of got off track here, but I'm wondering what we should. Let's see here, missing GPA. I think we've covered this one, right? We covered this one with Dave, Mail. Oh wait, is this one actually missing a GPA? Oh, this is another one of those examples of like we interpret this as a class. This becomes invalid GPA. GPA is not a number. Right, because in this one, if we're doing the rule where it's like the first parameter is the name, the second parameter is the gender, the third parameter is the GPA, this is GPA is not a number. So this one should actually print, invalid GPA Java. Oh, this is the uses message. Well, we'll skip that for. Well, no, I can probably do that too. Okay. So now let's do Cody mail Java. Let's just see what happens. I think I can. Yeah, I can take this one and just copy it. And this is invalid GPA. Oops. Invalid GPA. and this was Cody, whatever, Cody male and the GPA of Java. So here I expect this is invalid. Oops. Invalid GPA Java. Yes, yes. Let's see what happens. Yep, it failed because we were expecting this and it was nothing. So okay. Well, let's start at the same track where it's like let's make it pass the stupid way, and then let's make it a little smarter once we have a test that will validate the smart path. So here, if we only have 3, then we say we're just going to do a system.error.println, system.error.println invalid. Oh, I need to GPA. Oops. GPA. Going to make a variable there, and that will be args2. Okay, we're going to run that again, and I think that'll pass this time. Cool. Let's see here. Then I think the next test is a valid GPA with no classes, which is cool, right? What was the no class? 0 classes. Yeah, Dave Mail 3.64. So that should be valid. So let's oops. So here we want 3.045 or whatever. It does not contain I guess so. That makes a good point. I don't know. Should we be validate? Should we test that? Oh, actually, wait a second. In this case, we don't want anything. Nothing should be written to standard error in this case. So then we should say equal to the empty string, and here we should have an exit code of 0 because we're happy. Yeah. And actually, yeah. Okay, so what we're doing here on the left of the screen is we are setting up our expectations. So we expect that when the student main is invoked with code email in 3.45, that nothing's written to standard error, and that that the exit code is 0. Technically, should also print out that statement about the student, and maybe we should talk about whether or not we're ready for that. Hey everybody, super sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened there. Okay. That was more than messed up. Oh, thanks for the kind words. Welcome me back. I'm sure you missed me. Okay. When we last left our dashing heroes, we were doing IntelliJ stuff. Okay. So we're writing this test. We are validating the GPA. And so then here, okay, we want to validate the GPA. So let's see here. We want to, well, let's just, again, let's be kind of naive. Is valid GPA. Oh, and let's not make this mistake again. If not, valid GPA. Why is it? Okay, there you go. Let's do that. And then otherwise, do this. Now, how do we go about validating the GPA? What is the GPA exactly?
2 parts range and also the type.
Yeah, let's see here. We're getting a float, a double. Oh yeah, actually, yeah. What is it in the constructor for the string class would say? And now isn't it? It is a double. Okay, great. So it's passed in as a string. How do I validate that? Does anybody know off the top of their head?
I use the pass double.
I'm sorry, could you say again, please?
You used the method double that pass double.
Right. Okay. Good point. Okay, and this is, but I want to return whether or not it's Boolean. So I say what? I say double dot parse double GPA, and then I guess that says return true. And then is it complaining about something? It's complaining that I don't do anything with the result. That is true. I think I'll do something with the result later. Okay. And then this will make the test pass. Oh, it doesn't. Oh, if it is 0 but was 1. What is it talking about again? Oh, right, the exit code is 0. Oh, look at that. That is true. Here, I want it to be 0. Okay, well, then if it's happy, yeah, okay. I'm just not happy with how this is turning out, but it's okay. I'm not quite to the point where I'm ready to refactor. Okay, so I'm gonna say, hey, if I get this far, I've got a valid GPA. I'm happy for right now. I'm gonna run it. Yay, that works. Now I'm gonna run all my tests. Oh, one's failing. Invalid GPA. Main method should not throw an exception caused by number format exception for input string Java. Oh, look at that. The is valid GPA. Oh, right. Okay, so it's passed in Java. It throws a number format exception, so I need to wrap this in a try catch block. If it's able to get that far, it should return true. Otherwise, I'll catch the number format exception. And if it throws a number format exception, in that case, I want to return false. Nope, now invalid GPA. Ah, right. Now it's failing because, oops. Now it's failing because the exit code I expected it to be 1, but it was 0 because here, I don't know if I like this very much. So now if I say system.exit 1 here, it should work. Boy, this thing over on the right is just getting kind of hairy, and there's all this special casing. I don't know. I don't like it. But all my tests are passing, so that's good, right? The program is behaving the way I want. It's got the external quality, but boy, the internal quality, I don't know. It's just sort of like making the hairs on my back, the back of my neck stand up. But I don't know what I would do differently, and I only really want to like do a big refactor if I really have to. I want to explore a little bit more, and then let's see here. So now we're validating GPA. Were there any other GPA related things? Oh yeah, we had things like the ranges, right? So yeah, invalid GPA, and maybe actually let's rename this non-parsable. Non-parsable. Is that a word? Yep, GPA. And now let's have one which is too small. So then let's have GPA less than 0. So now we want to have, oops, I copied the wrong one. Oh no, I guess I copied it right. Okay, so this should be, so we have like -1. Okay, so now if we do that, oops, wait, what? Where to get, oh, right. It should contain string what? GPA is not in. What we want that message to be? I think we sort of said so over in the. Sorry, I've got the wrong window up. What did we say it should be? GPA is out of bounds. There we go. Good. Just 1 to 4, 0 to 4. Range is 0 to 4. Okay, so now let's implement it over here. Is valid GPA. So now we want to say double. Actually, wait. I don't like that name GPA because I want to reuse it. I'm going to call this GPA as string, and then double GPA equals that, and then if GPA less than 0, then return false. But right, it's saying that's invalid, but I want a different message in this case. I don't know, what should I do? What's the best way for me to implement this? I want to basically have let's see here. Oh, actually, so I haven't thought that. I saw, someone sent me a cue. Oh yeah, shouldn't you implement or greater than 4? Not yet. And this is one of those things about test-driven development that takes a lot of discipline. I know that like the very next code on the right that I'm going to need to write is or greater than 4, but I'm not going to do it yet because I don't have a test for it. Because if I did it now and then I wrote the test would pass without failing. You always want to write a failing test first. That is, you always expect when you write a test that it should fail first. Remember like a while ago when I missed that bang and I was so surprised because my test passed? Because right, if I wasn't used to that, I'd be like, oh great, it already works. No, it was a problem with the logic in the code. So I've got to hold off from implementing that greater than 4. But first, I got to figure out how to get the right message in here. Okay. I am going to do a little bit of refactoring here, and then I'm going to do a lot of refactoring because here again, I'm not feeling good about this code. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to change this to say instead of like is valid GPA, I'm going to introduce a method that prints an error message and exits because I kind of have like that same logic in here. I don't like having the system.exit down here, having the system.exit 0 up here. It just doesn't seem right. This code is just getting really messy. It's getting really unruly. I'm just not happy with it. So I am going to give myself a little bit of screen real estate because this thing is just getting out of hand. Too much code. So I am going to create a method. I'm going to put this thing. I'm going to make this thing right here. I'm going to extract this code right here because I'm going to have this duplicated all over the place. I'm going to put this into a method and I'm going to call it print message and exit. And I'm going to call it print error message and exit. And I am then going to, instead of saying, I'm going to inline this. And instead of saying is valid GPA, I am going to change this to be called, sorry, I should be using some of these to show you what I'm doing. I'm going to rename that method to just call it validate GPA. And it's not going to return a Boolean anymore. Instead, I'm going to put the logic, I'm going to take all that logic out of here. And so I don't want this to return anything anymore. I might change the decision later. But now let's just put all this validation logic in here. I think it'll be easier. And it'll let me customize the, see, now I want to paste that down here. It'll let me customize the error message a little bit more. I'm going to be happier with that code. I think it'll read better, and it's more extensible. The chat is in the way. Invalid GPA as string. Oops. GPA is string, and I don't return anything. Here, if it's that, I want to print an error message and exit saying, oh, this thing over here. This message right here. I am going to put that into a constant though, because that is a big, oops, magical string. Oh, it doesn't like it's going to return something. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to put this into a constant. And I'm going to say, yeah, GPA is out of bounds. I'm just going to call that. I'm gonna go all Hulk talk. GPA out of bounds. Yes. GPA out of bound. I'm gonna rename this again to GPA out of bounds. I wonder if is there a typo there? Nope. Okay, I just didn't do it right. Okay, and now otherwise I'm not going to return true here. I'm just going to be happy. Shortcuts conflict. Backspace and 7 more shortcuts conflict. What the hell is this? Oh, interesting. Okay. And over here I'm going to replace this with the string constant student dot GPA out of bounds. And now I'm going to run this test again. And it should pass, I think. And this code on the right, to me, just reads better, right? It's cleaner, it's happier. Nice. I'm going to rerun all my tests again just to make sure I haven't broken anything. And this is why I love the unit test, right? I have this whole suite of tests that's now, as I make changes to the code on the right, to the code under test, I can go back and validate that, yes, everything still works. That is super awesome. Okay, I'm much happier, or I'm getting happier with this little piece of the code over here on the right. I've still got some nastiness up here. Here's what I'm gonna do. I want to refactor this. I kind of like this method that I just this print error message and exit. I'm going to use that in some more places now. Like every time I've got like one of these, I'm just going to replace it with a call to that, clean things up a little bit. But first, I'm going to commit my code because it's working, and I'll sort of do a big refactor next. So implement. Oh, you know what? Sorry, I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to do GPA greater than 4. I'm going to do that. GPA greater than 4. Greater than 4. And then so 5.0, I'm going to run it. Okay, so probably a lot of you are sitting there going, "Oh my God, this seems so slow." And come on, I know what you need to write. I want to get ahead of you. And that's true. Now, this is meant to be a demonstration. This is a pretty straightforward program. The logic is pretty easy when it comes down to it. However, the lesson here is that slow things make progress, and you can quickly demonstrate that you haven't broken anything. So this is what I like about test-driven development. It might seem like it takes a little bit longer, but you notice that like I haven't had to debug much code, and when there has been a problem, I can find it just like that. Really think about the code that you've written. How much time do you spend debugging? How much time do you sort of say, I don't understand what's going on, even though, well, sorry, you're thinking that. Probably a lot of us wouldn't say it out loud unless we're like in our room or talking to our, our duck or whatever. So now I need to augment this, say, hey, if it is less than 0 or GPA is greater than 4.0, then issue the index out or the GPA out of bounds error. Cool. Okay, good. And rerun everything again. It should all be fine. Should all be fine. Okay, nice. Cool. Lots of things are passing. I'm going to work for a little while longer, but it's time for a break, right? So let's see here. I just kind of want to do this one refactoring, and then we'll take a break and come back and talk about some other stuff. This will be implement GPA. Oops. Well, I'll just say GPA parsing and range checking, bounds checking. Okay. So you see what I'm doing here? I'm just sending inputs to the program. I'm writing stuff over here on the right. And now here again, I'm just not feeling good about this code. I want to then take advantage of this new method I just added. But I got my test written first. I'm not going to change my test. I'm just going to change the code over here on my right in the process of called code refactoring. So here I'm just going to replace these two calls system.error with print error message and exit of this first guy, and then I'm going to say plus a new line, and then the second guy. And actually, you know what? I'm just going to have the usage. You know what I'm going to do? I am just going to let's have it so the usage message is printed anytime you have an error. That's probably the right thing to do. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to let's always print that followed by this. And as a matter of fact, yeah, so that's good. So that should still work. And now I'm just going to replace this thing also. I'm going to use it here. I'm thinking that maybe at some point I'm going to need to refactor this is recognized gender. Maybe. This is all feeling a little weird to me, but I think it's working. This doesn't need to change. And now I don't think I need this call to system.exit anymore. I'm not sure yet. So let me, I'm going to rerun all my tests. I just made that refactoring change. Hey, everything worked. Okay, now I'm going to get rid of this call systems.exit. I'm rerunning everything slowly. There you go. My computer must be working hard. Okay, that all works. This is cool. See how quickly now I can make changes quickly and confidently. And so now it's like, hey, listen, I only want system.exit to be called if everything is working. And so like all this, validating the input and stuff like that seems to be working here. So I'll call system.exit 0. And just one more time, I'll run all my tests. Yay. Okay, cool. So I'm feeling, I like the way this code looks. It's right. This seems way easier to read. I've removed some duplicated code. This is good, and all my tests pass. Yay! So, and I didn't have to write. See, this is refactoring, right? I didn't write any new tests. I didn't change any behavior because all the tests still pass. I just moved the code around and made things easier to read. I like that. Okay, so now let's quick do a commit here. So refactored main method to leverage print error message and exit method in more places. Okay, neat. Okay, and guess what? It's time for a break. So let's take 12 minutes. Let's come back at 8:25. And I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna not code for a little bit. We're gonna talk about some of the assignments and stuff, and how to test, how to document, and then learn about project 2. And that might take a while. So that might bring us to the end of the evening. But first we need another break, right? So back at 8:25. Hey everybody, welcome back. Okay, gosh, are we really? When did we start? 5:30. Has it really been 3 hours? My goodness. Okay, it's time to be finishing off here. So what have we done tonight? We've done a lot of testing. I guess when I think about it, tonight's class was all about testing. So we started off with this great brainstorming session where we looked at the student class and we came up with all sorts of test cases, all sorts of scenarios that we wanted to explore with our codes. Like, hey, when I give it this, what happens? And so we brainstormed all of these and we sort of determined and talked amongst ourselves what the expected behavior was. And then we started implementing them using what are called integration tests, right? These integration tests exercise the main method. They don't exercise the methods of the student class. As a matter of fact, you'll notice that we didn't implement anything in the constructor or the says method or toString or anything like that. But we'll need to eventually, and we're not gonna have time for that tonight. I'll probably publish like a bonus screencast where I talk about that, and depending on what I end up covering, I'll let you know how essential I think it is for viewing. Because tonight I really want to finish off with setting some expectations for your projects. And so there's some really important stuff. So thanks for staying with it, and we'll dive into that now. So we've been learning all about testing, and so now I want to transition to the sort of the so what of all of this. So hey, we're doing testing, right? And testing is a good thing, but what does it mean for my projects? Well, this is something that I struggled with for several years because oops, where'd it go? Not that one. We'll close it out. Because for a long time I did exercises like the one I just did. Oh, we're writing code together. I'm doing test-driven development. I'm showing you how to write tests. And the students would ask like, well, do I really need to do this? And I'm like, well, I don't really evaluate it. And then I finally got to a point. It's like, yeah, I want to, not encourage you. I'm going to force you to write tests by evaluating. But first, I want to lecture a little bit more about why testing is so important. Sort of like how, and also talk about sort of how we got to where we are today in terms of contemporary software development. So, for many years, it sort of started in the mid 70s. There were some papers that everybody thought was really cool. That established this conventional wisdom that said, hey, software development has multiple phases, and one, you write the code and you should have someone else test the code because, oh my goodness, you can't trust the developers to do things the right way. You need someone to check their quality. And this this mentality seemed like the right thing at the time. I mean, it was the 70s, so it was bell bottoms and polyester and everything, and the separation between software development and software testing. And it allowed for specialization, And so it allowed for an individual to get good at development, and individuals get good at testing. I mean, gosh, I've worked with some great QA engineers over the years that are just, can really help understand the problem and can think of test cases that I as a developer never would have thought of. However, there were some downsides. Very often, by separating the two roles, the building and the validation, by separating that into different people, it meant that they were separated chronologically, and then the feedback loop was really long. And so then, there was a time in my career where I'd write a piece of code, and then like 3 weeks, 3 months later, someone would tell me there was a bug in it. I don't remember what I was writing. I don't remember what was going through my head at the time. And what this meant is that developers like had to fix bugs in code that they wrote months before, and that was just and so it just took longer. As we just saw, when you find your bugs right away, you can fix the bugs right away. It also, sort of on the more human side, it led to wars between developers and QA in terms of who was right. And it was, developers often felt attacked and was like, well, no, I did it right the first time. You're wrong, Mr. or Ms. QA. And it just wasn't good. It was, wasted effort, trying to get agreement months after the fact. You've already written the code and they need to go back and revisit what it was supposed to do. So by agreeing up front what it needs to do and then just validating that you've done that, again, the feedback loops are much shorter, and people are happier. Also, because the code was written, the developers say, well, I'm doing my part, and that's someone else to vet it, and those bugs really sucked. And also, this made it easier to consider people that just did testing, the people that validate that yes, your software does what it's expected to do, what your customers want it to do. They got viewed as second-class citizens in all too many cases. And so then this was like led to competition, and everybody wanted to be right instead of doing the right thing. So as a result, there was not only friction, but things took longer, and it was all too easy to tolerate lower quality work because, like, well, it's been done and sitting there for 3 months. We should really ship it to the customers, even though the testers hadn't fully validated it. I'm seeing a couple questions come in. Where is the code from class? If you mean the code that I wrote, is in the the code that I just wrote now is in the, I guess we had the repository up there before. It's up there on GitHub, Portland State Getting Started. I'll just post this right here. And then, I pushed everything to, everything to the branch.
It reminds me of a quick question I forgot about, which was, you wrote down the tests into like a Word document or something. Are you going to share that as well?
Sure, if you want.
That'd help. You can possibly do that later.
Oh, let's do it right now. Scenarios for student project. And let's see here. Only people with a link can open this. Yeah, I think that's right.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so testing is good. Oops, recent left. So it used to be that testing and development were considered and thought they ought to be separate activities. But this led to, oops, sorry, here we go. Led to some problems, and things have changed. There was the big revolution happened at like the turn of the century when unit testing became a thing, and all of a sudden developers were like, wait, I can write tests that are like code. I like to code. Okay, I'll write some tests, right? And we've sort of seen the benefits of test-driven development in these unit testing frameworks. And also as a result, people that were doing tests could express their tests in code, and okay, we all have now a common language. So the bottom line is that testing and automated testing is just part of what we do as software engineers, and so I want you to experience that. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to assess your experience with that by having your automated tests be my organization isn't the really. It's a
That's
Gmail.
speculation. My main point is basically when I click the link, it says I'm signed in to my PDX email, but it says you need access and I have to request access from you.
One more time then. I'll make everybody a commenter.
Okay.
There. Thank you. Yep, thanks, Sam. Sorry, I just wasn't paying attention there. Okay, bottom line is you're going to have to write code. And the way I know is you're going to write tests. And the way I know you've written the tests is I'm going to run them. And the way I know that the tests are complete is that they cover a certain amount of your code. So there is this code coverage utility called Jacoco, which measures that will run your unit tests, run your integration tests, and it will assess whether or not you've met 75%. Sorry, it'll assess two things. First of all, that every class has at least one automated test, and that overall at least 75% of the JVM instructions, so the lines of code essentially, are executed by your unit tests. This is part of your grade, and so if it doesn't, if your automated tests don't reach that threshold, then I can deduct, or I reserve the right to deduct up to 1 point from your project grade.
Is there a way within IntelliJ for us to tell how much covering?
There is, and it's just about the same as Jacoco, but here's what we can do. We can say, like when you run it, you can say run with coverage, and that will go and do it. And let's see here, it'll run all those tests, and then over here prints out this report, and it says all the classes, half the methods, and 76% of the lines. Okay, good. I'm just above the threshold right now. That's how you can do it in IntelliJ. If you want to do it with, let's see here. Let me go find this right here. Nope. Portland State Java, Summer 2021. If I then go to the student project and I run the command, this command right here, with -p grader, that enables the grader profile, which then does the code coverage. This will go and clean everything and then rebuild everything, run the unit tests, run the integration tests, and then do the code coverage analysis. I hope. And then it will print out whether or not the thresholds were met. Actually, it might be right on the cusp. And it was not. Okay, it has not. And it says rule violated, instructions covered. Ooh, a ratio of 0.07. That doesn't seem right. It looks like it's not taking the integration test into account. I'll need to fix that.
That's Jacoco itself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep,
So yeah, that's definitely some kind of weird bug. Does that mean we should re-poll some changes after you fix that?
I will let you all know what you need to do to fix it. You might not need to do anything.
Okay, hopefully.
Yep. Seems unlikely though. Okay, I'll have to. Darn it. Okay, good deal. Of course, maybe this is why I probably should have written unit tests first before the integration tests. But interesting. Okay. Things break, and we will fix them, and then I will write tests then that will validate that later on. So anyway, I will look into that and let you know. But in the meantime, yeah, you can use IntelliJ to measure it, and then you can see your progress towards it that way. So anyway, more information about that here. So this is why I stress testing so much. Not only is it the right thing to do, it's also part of your grade, part of what I want you to experience, and to be able to demonstrate proficiency in as part of the course. Any questions about that? Okay. Cool. You say a point. That means out of 100. Oh, that means each assignment is worth, yeah, let's just go. Yeah, we haven't had much experience in this yet. So every project is worth some number of points. So project 1 is worth 7 points. And so then without the code coverage, you would lose one of those. Yep. There was something else that I wanted to show you related to testing. So some of you noticed that you created your repository, and then you get this email saying, this build thing had failed. And that's true. GitHub has these things called workflows, which are actions or tasks that are run as run when you under various circumstances. And so I use a couple of actions that do things like run your project whenever there is a code commit, or whenever there's a push, whenever there's a push to GitHub, and then also run some quality analyses. And interesting. Oh, and CodeQL is still blowing up.
Yeah, I was gonna ask at one point, although I forgot until now, that it seems like basically the base GitHub repo that you have is screwing up somewhere on the test.
Well, I thought, okay, and so then, because I don't see this on my other repository, which is similar. Okay, even with the latest commits, we can just get rid of it then, because it really, I mean, what it would do, it was look for like problems in third-party libraries, but we're not really adding third-party libraries. So it was meant to be a good demonstration. So I'm just going to go ahead. I don't know. Can it? It says no build found. Sorry, no code found, which I'm kind of surprised by because it ought to be able to find it. Huh. That's surprising and unfortunate, and something I will look into later. So I will show you then how to fix that, get rid of that, because yes, the emails are super annoying. I probably have like 20 of them in my inbox right now. So go into IntelliJ and go into the project, and then look at the .github directory and delete the code QL analysis. Sorry, I'll just use the keyboard shortcut. Go ahead and delete that, and then check it in and commit. Get rid of the code QL analysis because it doesn't appear to work, which is super annoying. And probably my fault. I've clearly done something wrong. And I just committed my code. I pushed it up to GitHub, and now as a result, GitHub. Oops, I think it will. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong repository. I'm looking at. You know what? I'm sorry. I totally. I don't want Portland State Java getting started. I want Portland State Java Summer 2021. Sorry, and to whoever asked the question, hey, what repository has the code from tonight? It's this one. It's the Summer 2021. It's not the Get It Started. I should delete it from Getting Started also, but I'll do that later. Okay, here again, looking at the actions, which are those workflows. I changed the code, and oh, good, it's not complaining about the. Oh no, CodeQL was working. Okay, well, it doesn't. It's probably not very valuable, because there's really not that much third-party code to analyze. So, but instead what I've got is I got this Java CI with Maven. And so what this does is every time that you push a change up to GitHub, this process runs, it clones the repository and builds all your projects. It does Maven clean verify from the top level directory. And what this does is then, and what this does is it makes sure your code compiles. It makes sure that all of your tests can run based on what's ever committed in GitHub. And so this way, it'll detect when you do things like, checking changes that don't compile, or hey, you're missing a file because you forgot to check it in. This is something called continuous integration, and this is an excellent piece of feedback for software development, because what this does is that it takes the code in GitHub and basically does a clean room build. So you know, when you build on your local machine, there's always the risk that there's something unique about your local machine that causes things to work, right? So maybe you've got your environment path, configured just correctly, or maybe you've got, again, a file that's there locally that you didn't realize you had to check in, and so everything worked just fine on your machine, but it might not work on someone else's machine because of the environment. Well, this workflow make sure that all your code can build straight out of GitHub with no other environmental changes. You tell it, okay, yeah, install Java, and then build from GitHub. It's really great. It sends you feedback. You might get emails that things are failing. That's on purpose. It's meant to give you information and rapidly about how your code's doing. So continuous integration is a great thing, and I highly encourage you to get it clean and get it green and keep it clean. And it's something that comes with the Getting Started repository. Okay. Okay, so that's the requirements for testing. Next, I want to talk about the requirements for documentation. So understanding what your code does and communicating what your code does to others is just an important part of software development. And when you have code that is easy to read, is approachable and understandable, it makes it easier to extend. It makes it easier to communicate with others. You coming back to your own code weeks or months later will be happy and will thank your previous self for making sure that its intent is clearly expressed, that you know how to use it. So there are two mechanisms that we'll use in this class for documenting our code. The first is something called the plan of attack. So this is something that I've used ever since I started teaching, and the whole idea is that 72 hours before the project is due, which is Sunday night, before then, I want you to submit a concise email to me that explains how you're going to implement your project. And I want you to say, hey, what class am I going to use? What question am I going to try to answer? What things am I still investigating? And it should be 2 to 4 paragraphs, right? Don't send code. Just tell me in words what how you're going to approach your project. Please email this to me, like as plain text or something that's easy to read, to whitlock@cs@pdx.edu, and put the letters POA, as well as the name of the project, like Project 1, in the subject of the email. It's important to note that I have some email filters, some rules that put all the POAs into their own folder. So if you have another question for me about the class, if you put POA in the title, it's not going to get to me right away because I check all of these on Monday morning or something like that. So please don't put POA in the title if you've got something important for me to look at or urgent. The POA is worth 1 point of your project grade. So again, we looked at project 1. It was a total of 7 points. One of those points is for the POA. The remainder of the 6, the remainder of the 7, the 6 is for how well your project does against the test cases. The motivation behind the plan of attack is to get you not only to write about the project before it's due, but also to think about what you're going to do. I have to admit, this is one of the tools that I use to make sure that you really started the project, because procrastination just doesn't work, and it's a bad thing for everybody. And I'm evil. The other mechanism for documenting your code is actually in the code itself. There's API documentation that you're expected to write and get experience using, and there's also the README, which is a command line argument. So Java has this really nice tool convention for documenting codes, documenting certain aspects about a code. And there are some special comments, /**, a comment that begins with /*** and ends with // what's known as a Javadoc comment. And when those Javadoc comments precede programming elements like a class or a method or a field, they describe that. And there's a tool called Javadoc, which will then parse the source code, extract the comments, and create user documentation, like pretty HTML pages or like a PDF or whatever. And this is the stuff that generates the Java API documentation. So for instance, you've probably seen the API docs for Java. And so then I want to learn about a class like string builder. Let's get something more interesting. Array list. And so you can go to this information. It's all about the class. And all of this text actually is from the source code from Java array list that you can then extract and turn into HTML. And as a matter of fact, you can generate HTML from your own code by saying maven w javadoc :javadoc. And so what this does is it looks all the source code, and maybe I should first explain to you what you're about to see. If you look at the student class, I've got way too many things open here. How do I? Sorry, I need to move stuff out of the way. And then I will close this. Okay. If you look at the student class, you'll see that student has comments like this class, this class represents a student. It has this comment for the constructor. These are Javadoc comments. And so when you run the Javadoc tool and it parses this stuff out of the parses it out of the source code, it creates these HTML files in the target site API docs directory. Maven does that, which then has Javadocs for student. And so then here it has, this class represents a student. That comes directly out of the source code from this description of the class up at the top. And then lets you, it's got some stuff with the fields. And then it has, you can learn about the constructor. By clicking on the constructor, it'll take you down to a description. And inside, and then it has these descriptions of each parameter that this method takes. You have name, classes, GPA, and gender. And again, all of that comes from the contents of this documentation comment right here. This is really cool stuff, and it makes it so easy to describe your API, to describe the classes, the methods, the fields, which are usually private, so usually not the fields, that are there in your code. And one of the things that I want you to gain experience with in this class is writing documentation for your code as Javadoc. And so then each one of then I require that each let's see here, each method including constructors have let's see here, where is it, that have the appropriate Javadoc. And then as part of when I grade your program, I'll run Javadoc in a special way that then spits out, here are all of the comments in your code, and some portion of your project grade will be based on that. It's usually less than a point.
I think you said that data fields, since they're usually private, are not described by Javadoc. Do you mean that we're not supposed to document them?
I'm trying to remember. I guess I don't say here. Yeah, no. What's most important to me is that classes have Javadoc and methods and constructors have Javadoc, and so fields, especially private ones, don't need to have Javadoc.
Mm-hmm. By fields, you mean like data fields within
Instance
classes?
variables. Sorry, let me show an example here. Well, I mean, these constants are fields.
Okay, so by fields, you don't mean data fields of a class. You mean basically loose variables? Like,
nope.
Okay.
It's the same thing.
Oh,
Yeah, so
okay. So yeah, this is in class student.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so all
They're
these
static.
These are static fields. So they're constants are
Okay. So basically,
static final
if
fields.
so name
Name doesn't count as a field?
Name is inherited from human. Actually, name is from animal. This I wouldn't expect Javadoc for because it's less protected. So maybe I wouldn't. I'm going to look at methods and classes.
What about GPA, since that's unique to student? Is student,
if there was a
what you would
field,
consider a field?
well, it's when we haven't implemented it yet, but yes, if there was a GPA field in student, then it would be a field, and but we wouldn't need a Javadoc.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Shouldn't it already have a field? Like,
Nope,
we've
it
gotten
has a parameter.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Okay, let's get terminology right here then. So we're talking about this constructor parameter, method parameter, called GPA, and yes, it has documentation right here.
Mhm.
So that I expect. If I then made a GPA equals GPA.
Mhm.
If I then created a field called GPA and student, I would not expect that to have a Javadoc, because that's not something that's going to be exposed inside the class.
Okay, so the reason that there's a distinction here is because they're parameters to the constructor. That's it.
And a public constructor at that. But
okay,
in
thank
general, yeah. But no, that's a good, very good qualifying question, clarifying question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll do that later. So, please write Javadoc, as it'll be part of the grade for each assignment. Also, I encourage you to learn about what's considered standard Java coding conventions in terms of variable names and method names and class names, capitalization, spacing, et cetera, et cetera. This is something I'm going to assess you on, but just like any coding convention, when you write code, you want your code to be as conventional as possible, because people will be able to consume it more easily if it looks like other Java code. It's just like spoken language. Yes, there's grammar and yes, there's syntax, but then there's also the sort of the style and the inflection, right? And so you want to have the same kind of thing in code. Finally, another important part of the documentation is the -readme flag, -readme option to your command line programs. The intent of the -readme is to provide more information than just the usage. It's a little statement that should be brief, concise, and readable about what your project does, right? Just give a little summary. So make sure it includes your name and the name of the assignment. It should be more than just command line usage, just a little statement of what your program does. And so it's important to note that when -readme is on the command line, all your program should do, as soon as it detects it, is print the readme and exit. Don't do any other validation of the command line or of the arguments, nothing like that. No matter what else is on the command line, if -readme there, print and exit. That's all you need to do. And by the way, oh, interesting. I don't call it out here. It's all right if you, it's all right if you, if your README is a text file, yeah. If your README is a text file in your project, actually, I have a way of working with it. You can, let's see here. Do I have? No. Yeah. I highly recommend. So then you can read your README from a text file that's bundled as part of your application. You are allowed to submit it, even so. I guess you can submit Java files and text files. Check out this little unit test right here that demonstrates how you can read the readme.txt file as what's called a resource in Java, and then use this in your code right there with when the -readme option is present. Realize that is a lot, but any questions about how to document your code? The plan of attack, the Javadoc, and the README?
So the plan of attack is due exactly 72 hours before the assignment itself.
Sunday night.
And that being said, you'd probably suggest that we try to do it before making any significant coding work on the project, right?
Yeah,
So I've, like,
I mean,
I've set up project one, but you'd suggest basically now that I've set it up and gotten sort of a lay of the land, start coming up with this plan of attack. It sounds like it won't be like super persnickety about just how super awesome perfect the plan is, more just that it's for developing a plan of attack and being able to execute on like a sensible plan.
Yep.
And then for Javadoc comments, basically you want, if I recall correctly, every method to be documented. That's it.
Every method and constructor and the class itself.
So one for the class, one for every constructor, and one for every method.
Yep.
For each, class section source file, which in this case we're just dealing with one class for project, right?
3.
Oh, okay. Right.
Appointment book, and project 1. Yep.
And then, yeah, the README you went over just now. So, was there a thing above plan of attack?
Nope. Just like why documentation is a good thing.
Apparently Li Huang asked about basically, are we supposed to have a plan of attack or no, a Javadoc comments for test classes?
No, you don't need it. No, I'm not going to look at those. I'm just going to look at your source code. Good question, though.
Okay, yeah. That's all I can think of.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Anybody else have questions? Oh, there was something came in. Let's see here. So the dash readme and dash print are just more command line arguments. Yes, and they're options, and options precede the command line arguments. Did that answer the question? Right, because if we go back and look at the project 1 assignment, right, options precede arguments, and so then, well, maybe I should, anyway. But yeah, you have, do I have an example? Yeah, I don't. I probably should. Yeah, so it's like you say dash print and then owner description, beginner end, and whenever you see dash readme, you exit.
Okay.
Sorry, you print the readme and exit.
Yeah, I was reading about options, and it was a totally different thing. You put some option in before the project 1 and then the argument. So that's why I was very confused. I was like, how are we supposed to do this?
Sorry, yeah, these are program options, not JVM.
Okay.
Not
yeah.
Java options.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. No, that's a really important distinction. Okay. Nice. Okay, so that's documentation. So we cover testing, we talk documentation. So so you've okay, great. You've created your project 1, and you've you thought about the assignment, you read over the assignment, you've done the plan of attack, and then you're writing your code, you're writing tests, maybe doing test-driven development, you're writing tests along with writing your code, you're writing documentation along the way, and you're all done, you're happy, you've got good code coverage, you think you have all the tests you need and they're passing, and now you have to submit, and now it's time to submit it. Right? So let's talk about how to submit your projects. Okay. So a million years ago, I wrote a program that uses something called the Java Mail API because I wanted to know how to send email with Java programs. And so I wrote this program that submits projects for us, and it's called the Submit program. And on the CS Department's Linux machines, you run it using this command line right here, and it has well, arguments and options, just like your projects. And so you specify things like the name of the project, who you are, your login ID, which is the the MKEX, so what you use for your package name, your email, and then also a directory that contains your source code, which will just be the source src directory from your Maven projects. And so then if I were to submit project 1, I would just run the command line like this. You can have an optional comment Probably these other things you won't need to use. But you can have an optional comment if you want. This is like, oh, hey, sorry it's late, or hey, there's some stuff that doesn't work, but please grade it anyway. If there's something you want to tell me, that's always nice. And what this then does is that it'll has a confirmation screen where it'll say, hey, here's all the files that I'm submitting. Is this what you expect? And if it is, then you say yes. And so then it takes all those files, puts into a temporary jar file, attaches it to an email, and then sends it to me. It'll also send you an email receipt telling you which files were sent. The submit program is an essential part of my grading workflow. It's what allows me to handle so many students in the class. So please use it and make sure it works. If you send me a bunch of source code attached to an email or something, or put something on Dropbox or whatever, I won't deal with that. Trust me, this has all sorts of this fits right into my workflow. It integrates with my grade book. It has things like the timestamp, so I know when it was submitted to tell if it was late or not. It's really important that you use this. If you encounter problems with it, please let me know and I'll try to fix them. Couple of notes. I only want source code, so don't, it'll reject class files and won't let you submit those, but it'll allow you to submit Java, XML, although don't submit your POM, and .txt files. And so, yes, you can load your README file from source main resources, which is what I showed you a little moment ago. And so again, you can't submit your pom.xml, which means that you can't add third-party libraries or make other changes to the POM file. Again, part of the assignments are working within the constraints of the build, and so that means, yep, you have to write your own command line parser. You have to write your own code in Project 2 for writing to files and all that kind of stuff. It will enforce the name of your code directory. So make sure that the login that you used when you did the create project 0 or create project 1.sh or create project 1 script is the same as what you have on the command line here when you submit. You can't submit my code, my package back to me. I don't want it back. And please make sure to do like a Maven clean verify to make sure that all your code compiles and all of your tests run before you submit. The graders are not going to debug your code for you. So we'll take your code and we'll run it through the script, and we'll tell you, we'll assess the output, and then we'll give you a grade. But if something doesn't compile or if something's broken, we're not going to tell you, oh, here's where you need to fix it, or hey, I looked at your code and I think you need to change it like that. Nope, not with 50 plus students in the course. So please make sure that everything, definitely everything compiles, and that everything, and that the build is clean, because we'll be running a Maven clean verify on your code also. When submitting, please only, please submit all of your files in one batch. If you realize that you forgot a file, then just resubmit everything again. Don't be like, oh, half the files are in this thing, and then half the files are this other submission. We're not going to take the time to try to weave everything back together again. We hope this process is easy for you, and so then please follow it. It's okay to submit multiple times before the due date, but there's a little bit of extraction overhead in each submission. So please, be mindful of the grader's time. Hey, it's okay, if like, hey, you submit it on Wednesday morning and then like sort of realize that, oh, something's broken on Wednesday afternoon. Yeah, go ahead and submit it again. Just don't be submitting it like dozens of times. And again, no late work, and the submit program puts in a timestamp so we know when your work is late. If you have problems, and it's very rare that people have problems, but run with -verbose and -savejar to maybe give you some insight, but reach out to me if you have problems, because this is pretty solid code. It's been running for 20 years. Any questions about how to submit? Nope. Cool. Okay, and finally tonight, there is a new project assigned, Project 2. So as many of you might be finding, Project 1 is simple, kind of, pretty easy. There's not a lot there. As a matter of fact, the assignment says create an appointment book and add an appointment to it, but like we don't do anything with that appointment book. You do something with the appointment book in Project 2. So in Project 2, we augment the appointment book application with the ability to store the contents of an appointment, including its appointment. Sorry, contents of an appointment book, including its appointments, in a text file. And the format of the text file is completely up to you. It's part of the assignment, is for you to design a format for the text file that you can easily write out and then easily read back in. And this will give you experience using Java's facilities for doing I/O and for throwing exceptions. So there are 3 new classes that you'll have to implement as part of this assignment, and they all go in your package. And the first one is called Text Dumper. A Text Dumper converts an appointment book into a text format and writes it to a file. And it implements an interface that I provide called Appointment Book Dumper. You'll be providing I'm sorry, I'm trying to think. I think in later assignments you'll be providing another implementation of Appointment Book Dumper. So there's this interface that you'll implement a couple of times. And so that's the text dumper dumps the contents of an appointment book to a text file. And then conversely, there is Text Parser, which implements the appointment book parser interface, and it takes the contents of a text file and creates an appointment book from it. So reads in the contents of the appointment book and its appointments, and returns it as an appointment book object. There is a new main class for this project called Project 2. And its main method does the same kind of stuff as an appointment book, but there is a new option that allows you to read the contents of a text file and from it create an appointment book, add the new appointment that is described on the command line to that appointment book, and then writes it out to the text file again. So the syntax of the command line is almost the same as Project 1, except that there is a new option called -text file, and this specifies where you should read and write the appointment book from. The format of the dates haven't changed, nor has anything else. There's still a print and a -readme. If -text file is not specified on the Project 2 command line, the project should behave just like Project 1, which is read in the parse the command line, create the new appointment, add it to an empty appointment book, and if -print is there, print out the toString of the appointment. Note that if you run the program and the text file does not exist, this is not an error. Instead, the program should just create an empty appointment book, not try to parse the contents of the empty file, and just create an empty appointment book, add the new appointment, and print it out. That's how you bootstrap your appointment book file. Do note that it's not necessary to create a new Maven project for Project 2. You can just evolve the code that you did from Project 1, and you've got everything in your GitHub history if you're using GitHub. So you don't need to worry about losing anything if you go back in time. And I will tell you right now, the text parser and text dumper do use those generic types to specify the type of appointment book, so you get some more experience playing with those. Just like in Project 1, your program should exit gracefully and have a user-friendly error message when something goes wrong, when something is unexpected. So for instance, there's something wrong with the command line, the formatted date time is wrong, the text file is malformed, and here again, don't blow up, don't have a stack trace that boils over onto the command line, catch the appropriate exceptions, do the appropriate error handling, and then issue a nice message to the customer. Also, something that's new is an error condition if the owner, the name of the owner that is present in the file is different from the one in the command line. This is considered an error case, just some more checking that you need to provide. Project 2 is worth 9 points and is due 2 weeks from tonight on July 14th, right before class. Any questions about Project 2?
Just to verify, next week Project 1 is due?
Yes, let's take a quick look. You can find all of this on the course homepage. So next week is July 7th. Project 1 is due. Quiz 2 is due. Let's look ahead. Week 4 on July 14th, Project 2 is due, and then we've got on July 21st, both the Project 3 and the cones are due. So that's always a tough week for folks. There's a lot of stuff to do for that week. So please, while you're working on your Project 1, while you're starting your Project 2, make sure to keep up with those cones because it kind of all comes crashing down in week 5.
So
please be sure
basically,
to stay on
Project
top of
1
those.
we have 2 weeks to do. Project 2 we have 1 week to do. Project
You have 2 weeks to do.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
But
So
Project 3 is 1 week, or
no, I think everything is. Let's see here. Project 3 is assigned in this week, and then 2 weeks later. You have 2 weeks to do it, but part of the challenge is that you have stuff going on at the same time. Yep.
I feel like I kind of am still a little bit fuzzy on how to do the koans. I know there's a create koans like script in the GitHub. Shortly, I'm probably gonna check out branch koans and then run that. And what happens from there? It's like a whole bunch of bite-sized things. Are we supposed to write unit and integration tests for them?
Nope, it's a very different beast from your project. And we saw it last time, but I'll spend a couple of minutes going through here. Otherwise, that's class. And so then, hey, if you're comfortable with the koans, please feel free to drop off now. Have a happy and safe 4th of July weekend, everybody. Please let me know if you have any questions. Reaching out on Slack is the easiest way to do so. I will see you again next week.
Please do not fire fireworks directly into the forest.
Yes, and probably pretty much else even in the city. And yeah, be aware of your neighbors, friends, pets, and wildlife.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I have one question to ask David.
Yeah, actually, I'm not done yet. I was going to show off the cones first, and so if you don't mind sticking around for another couple of minutes, I'm happy to get to your question.
Awesome.
So in the cones project, I've already created it. I did that last week, and this one works a little bit differently. Here, you're not really like building a project. Instead, you're running this this Java program that runs the cones. So you run this maven w exec Java command. What this does is it runs this program that then monitors the cones and actually monitors the source code for changes. So right now it's saying about assertions, line 42 is failing. And so now I go over to IntelliJ and I open up the about assertions class. Oops. Right, it was about assertions. Okay, I'll actually copy onto the clipboard this time. Open up about assertions and go to line 42. Sorry. And now it's failing. You replace these dash dash with the thing that'll make it pass. So in this case, it equals hello world. Make sure, okay, that's going to pass. And then you go back to the command line, and when you, it does an auto save, it detects the fact that the file is saved, and now it says, okay, great. Now you're onto the one on line 47. And it says, hey, I expected hello world, but it was replace me is the underscore underscore. And so then a similar here, you're learning about the assert equals method. So hello world, equals that same string. And then we got to make the other ones pass 2. So 1 equals 1, 2 plus 2 equals 4, 6.
Are the koans mostly focused on filling out and understanding these tests?
That is the intent. So here you're not so much writing code as much as you are looking at partially complete code and then understanding the particular lesson to make that code pass.
Did you say that there are like more than 50 or something?
There are 269.
Okay, and we're supposed to do all of them before next week?
No, they are due in, I think, 3 more weeks.
Okay.
They're due
I think, I made a note in the previous lecture, like July 21st or something.
Yep. Yes.
Okay, and we're supposed to have 269 before July 21st, but because each one is just this really tiny thing, that should be pretty
269
doable.
nibbles of work. Yes. Now, I mean,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
it's and this is why I recommend just doing a couple each day. You'll sort of get into a groove and figure it out, and then sometimes like, oh, this one, I spent 5 minutes thinking about this one. That's probably a good sign that you should take a break and then come back later.
Okay.
Okay. Good deal. It is getting dark. I'm not gonna be able to do this for too much longer, but it's also a sign. That's also a sign that I've been talking for a long time. So someone else had another question?
Yeah, it was me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is about project 2, where it says if the text file does not exist, then the program should create an empty appointment book. Like, does that? What are the things that have to be done to reach this condition? Like, do you have to specify the text file in order to reach that part? Or
yes, if dash text file, that's good. That's a very good question. If dash text file, if the option dash text file is not present, there is no default name of the text file. Don't implement something like that. If dash text file isn't there, there's no file IO at all.
Oh, okay. All right, can you repeat that again? I just want to make sure I really understand it.
Yep. So, okay. If dash text file is not present on the command line, project 2 ought to behave the same as project 1. If dash text file is there, the logic that your program ought to follow is the following. So it sees that there's dash text file. Aha, this is the name, and after dash text file is the name of the file that you'll read and write from. Good, determine that. Okay, then at some point later in your program, you'll say, hey, does that text file exist? If it does exist, then you should attempt to read the contents of an appointment book from that text file. If it doesn't exist yet, it's not an error. Your program shouldn't crash. It shouldn't like error out. Instead, you say, okay, this means I'm starting a new appointment book file. Create a new appointment book object because you can't read an existing one from the file. Create a new appointment book project appointment book object. Create a new appointment from what's on the command line, add the appointment to the appointment book, and then write the appointment book and all of its appointments, so any ones that were read previously from the file, and the new one out to the file again.
Yes, that makes more sense now. Thank you, David.
Yep. Yeah, it's an important question. Yeah, making express that more clearly in the assignment in the future. Okay.
I also had a quick question regarding, so I was working in the about equality file for the Cohens, and I was comparing the objects, so comparing two objects, and so it has like the function prototype of the object name, and then it would pass in it wouldn't pass in the type of the class, but it'd pass in an object, which higher up the branch or up the tree, so to speak. And so then referencing members was hard because I would do like object dot and then like, for example, like horsepower or whatever, and it wouldn't right in line 45-ish, right in there. So I do like
this one, yep,
this dot horsepower and then equal other dot horsepower, and it wouldn't recognize that other had a member horsepower
really
higher up the branch, I believe.
Oh yeah, right, yes.
Yeah, so I did.
So you're trying to do other dot horsepower.
Yeah. Yeah, so didn't like that, and so I tried, like, I thought it was some sort of form of like casting, downcasting, or something to that effect, and so I did. I wrote car, so of type, because we're working with type car or the class car, and then car object equals, and then in parentheses car other to downcast it.
Yeah.
But it didn't. That also was causing me errors, and I'm kind of at a loss of what would be.
I would expect that would work. So something that looks a little bit like this.
Exactly like that, yeah. And then car dot, and it says everything looks right, but then it was giving me errors. Like the code doesn't say these problems, but it would, like, when I ran it, it gave me problems.
Well, off the top of my head, I don't know what that is. Unfortunately, I'm not far enough ahead in the cones to actually run this one. So
I can text you the printout.
Yeah, send it to me on Slack, and I'll see if I can figure it out. Yeah, it's a weird one. Okay, Cool. Anybody else got a question?
Yeah, just real quick for the cones, for the command line stuff, are we able to do that on the school's Linux and then do it in IntelliJ, or do we have to do it on our local machine?
Oh, well, no, you can, for the cones, okay, you can run them. The Maven works, but then you have to edit the files. And so then if you want to use VI or Emacs, wherever to edit the files, you could definitely do that on the school's machine. But if you're using IntelliJ, then that, you can't run IntelliJ on the school's machine. I don't think you can run IntelliJ anyway on the school's machines. Certainly doing it remotely would be a challenge.
Okay, yeah, I just for Windows people. But yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. We saw how we can use IntelliJ for Git. Well, IntelliJ has a terminal. I don't, boy. So actually, this is a good point. I don't know. Can I run it here? Exec Java. I don't know if this is going to work or not. I don't use the IntelliJ terminal that often.
Yeah, it worked for me in the IntelliJ terminal.
Okay, awesome. That works then.
Yeah, maybe that'll work. That's a good tip. Nice.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. No, you're welcome. Okay.
I have one question, a small one. Yeah, you were mentioning about plan of attack and Javadoc, right? So plan of attack is just a mail containing some 2 paragraphs of how we, how we think to start the project or something, right?
Yep. More
So
details
what
are in
is
that handout.
Javadoc? I didn't get it.
Oh,
Like,
sorry.
should we
I went pretty
submit
fast.
something? Yeah.
Javadoc is part of your source code, and it's comments like this that begin with
Okay.
*/ and end with ***.
Yeah. Okay, fine.
And then there's a link in that handout which explains like what all of the @params mean and what @return means and all that kind of stuff. Jeez, fireworks outside. Sorry. So yeah, I encourage you to read up on that. Please feel free to reach out on like the Project One channel in Slack if you have more questions.
So Javadoc need not be submitted as a part of plan of attack, right? It is a different one.
Correct. Yes, it's all part of the documentation.
I
That's why
just
it's in the
got
same
confused
handout.
over
But
there.
no, that's a good point. It kind of is all bundled together into that whole. Here's how to document.
Cool.
Okay. Any other questions before we completely adjourn?
Yeah, one more. Like you told that project 2 need not be created as another Maven class, right? Like Maven project. So how to do it, like in order to get merged along with project 1?
Well, just create new classes right next to the Project One classes. So for instance, let's go ahead and here's my appointment book, and here in my main class, I'll create I'll create text dumper.
It is just the new classes, that's it, right? We don't have any project 2.cmd to create any new.
Correct, because you can use the same Maven build, and you're going to be reusing your appointment and your appointment book classes. I mean, you shouldn't need to change them. You might have to depending on how you implemented them, but you shouldn't need to change them. And so then just create some new classes. But you do create, you do create a project 2 instead of a project 1. If there's common code, you might want to figure out how to reuse it. You might want to start by copying your. I probably don't want to. You could copy your project 1 and then augment for project 2, but more likely, you'll want to, refactor code into a common place. But anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Got it.
Boo. Oh gosh, poorly lit. Okay. Awesome. Hey, thanks for staying a couple minutes later. I'll let's see how I'll post the recording either later tonight, depending on how long it takes to render on Zoom, and I'll post something in the class recordings channel in Slack. I'll also put a link to it up on the website here. it appears right by the name of the week. So this is the screencast from last week, and so it will appear right by week 2 once I have everything up on YouTube. Okay. Have a good one, everybody. Hope to see you next time. Bye now.
Thanks. Bye.